Howdy folks, Richard Victory here. Just wanted to show you a game I recently had in the Tier 5 Japanese battleship, the Kongo. Now, Kongo, of course, is one of the first real battleships in the Japanese line. I mean, I know there are others before it, but to me at least, before this point, everything felt really like a heavy cruiser or a battle cruiser with an attitude. The Kongo is really the first time you see the combination of big, long-ranged guns, big health pool, and heavy armor all in the same ship. And this is really, to my mind, one of the best low-tier battleships that you can get into early on. So at this point, what we've got is the fleet is typically, no one wants to be the first one to sail up the middle. That's pretty much just asking to get flanked and shot at from all sides. So fleet's splitting into two groups, one heading roughly out to the northwest and the other heading almost straight north. Early detection on a cruiser, start putting shells in the air. I'm going to move with the primary force. As a battleship, my job is to fire forward and, put heavy rounds in quantities onto whatever the cruisers and the destroyers are detecting. It's a funny thing, actually, if you're a battleship driver and you head off by yourself and you get sunk, let's say by a destroyer that you didn't see, and thus didn't have, let's say, cruiser protection against, everyone laughs at you. If you head off, however, as a group of ships and you encounter the enemy force and things go badly, you get told you were part of a lemming train. It doesn't work that way, guys. Lone wolves get sunk. Fleet actions are done by fleets. That's groups of ships. In a preferential world, that's groups of ships all firing on the same target. You need to put 50 to 100 shells into the air to really start sinking ships. And so, particularly with battleships firing at long range, you need to start firing early, often, and put as many shells in as you can. One vessel against one vessel, that's a fair fight. You don't want fair fights. You want things as lopsided as possible in your favor. So you can see I'm kind of hanging back. Again, I've got 20-odd kilometer range on these guns. My optimum firing range is between 15 and 20 kilometers. That's when I take advantage of the plunging fire mechanic. And those big, heavy armor-piercing shells or high explosive shells, depending what I'm firing, are going to go slamming straight down through deck armor and explode inside the target. I'm kind of being a noob at this point. I've still got high explosive loaded. In the opening phases, it kind of doesn't matter. But really, battleship, as soon as you queue, just switch up to the armor piercing. But we engaged so rapidly I wasn't paying attention and kept high explosive loaded for a little while here. HE shells out of a battleship will make a mess out of a target, but you're not going to get the real monster damage. The 10,000, 15,000 point strikes that you do with armor piercing. Historically, battleship accuracies, even with early radar systems, averaged about a 2% accuracy rate. In other words, to score a couple of hits, you had to put 100 shells in the air. From what I've been seeing, battleship accuracy out in the last third of the range band, in my case the 15 to 20 kilometer, is closer to 12 to 15%, at least for me. I mean, I've played less than 300 games. I'm still not great. I'm still having issues learning lead. But yeah, the biggest issue that bites you as a battleship is dispersion. If you notice to the left and right of my target reticule, there are two white posts. Those marks are the width of the area that my shells will fall in at the given distance for the target. At 20 kilometers, that number, I believe, is 295 meters. That's getting into the size of a full football stadium. not a football pitch or football field, but a football stadium is my margin of error. So when you're firing at those range, you have to put a lot of shells up, and you have to pay attention. Once you find the range, don't second guess yourself, just keep firing, eventually the shells will hit. The thing is that one of these rounds, firing armor piercing, I'm still firing high explosive here, this is kind of embarrassing, going off inside a target, you'll do 10,000 to 15,000 points of damage in a single strike. And so the real mitigator to the firepower of a battleship is the dispersion radius. Battleship play, if you're new to World of Warships, is a much different kind of game. It's a little bit slower, as you're noticing right now. In the opening phases of the game, if your cruisers are doing their job, if the destroyers are doing their job, you don't get much closer to the enemy than 15 to 20 kilometers. The higher tier battleships don't get much closer than 20 to 30 kilometers from their targets. There's no need to. Your guns hit the best in terms of the plunging fire mechanic out at that last third, and you're vulnerable. So yeah, you just don't want to get any closer than this. And once you get used to the lead and the dispersion, you can start putting shells on the target, and it gets devastating. I finally figured out that I'm firing I was firing the wrong ammo. I've switched up to armor piercing at this point. But a lot of the game, unfortunately for Battleship, not as exciting as cruiser fights. You're zoomed into gun sight mode. I honestly spend a lot of time steering with the autopilot turned on. I set the course up to basically curve around where I expect the enemy force to be, and pick a target, start shelling them. And you spend, every once in a while zoom back out or check the tactical map and try and get a better understanding of what's going on around me so a destroyer doesn't sneak up on me. But yeah, this is a battleship fight. Now, there's a caveat. Japanese battleships in particular are long-range fighters. American battleships tend to be more brawlers. They tend to want to fight inside that 2/3 range because they've got the armor belt to take it. They can take the hits, they can get right up into your face, and they can stand there right in the middle of a bunch of cruisers. Japanese battleships can't. They have speed, they have range, they've got to use it. Something interesting I just wanted to point out here, if you check the minimap, directly off my stern quarter, we've got a friendly carrier who has been very carefully following along behind me the entire time as I've been sort of working my way up around the enemy formation, putting shells in. He seemed to have concluded pretty early on that if anyone was going to try and take a run at him, they were going to have to either fly or drive through me first. And I probably wouldn't be so interested in getting sunk, so I'd be more than willing to defend him. He was completely right. So he's been launching airstrike after airstrike after airstrike, completely unharassed, while the other carrier we had that stayed down south got end-runned by enemy destroyer, caught out all by himself, back by the spawn point, and sunk. So if you're a CV driver, stay with your fleet. They're going to hunt you down anyway. There's no value in hiding at the back of the map where you don't have any protection. Stay with your fleet. You might be wondering why I'm wasting main armament rounds on this destroyer. It's mostly because I don't have a cruiser handy. There's, if in a battleship, there's pretty much one thing that worries me. It's destroyers. This is a game of rock, paper, scissors, and destroyers beat battleships. If I let him get inside of 7 kilometers, I'm in a world of hurt. At 8.5 kilometers, I will happily fire my main armaments at a destroyer just to tell him that 1, I've seen him, and that 2, I'm taking him seriously. So this freeze frame shows why battleship drivers drive battleships. 1 shell into the enemy citadel scores a nearly 15,000 point hit. For some destroyers, that's an instant kill. For most cruisers, that's a seriously scary moment. If I was any good at this game and could land, say, 2 shells onto a target reliably into the citadel, I could conceivably be scoring 30 to 50,000 points of damage in a single salvo. That would kill almost any lightly damaged battleship. 4 shells like this, it kills anything at tier 6. So yeah, why do battleship drivers play battleships? 15,000 point citadel crits, that's why.
Enemy heavily damaged.
At this point, this Wyoming is in serious trouble. I've got the range. We're down to 12.5 kilometers. He's suffered a citadel penetration that I haven't. But I'm starting to see an awful lot of torpedo bombers going by, and so what I think is going to happen is that I'm about to be the victim of a side swipe from a torpedo strike. So I fire a couple last shells, and I put the ship into a hard turn. And that's when I realized that those bombers are actually going after the carrier behind me, not me. But I'm shooting some of them down as they're flying over, and then I see the destroyer, who's just about to do a drive-by on a friendly battleship. Yep, got him. And there's that cruiser that's clearly not paying attention because, well, he didn't shoot the destroyer. So now, the next really tasty target to look at is me. So I start lining up on where I figure he's going to come around the corner. There's the wreck of the friendly battleship he just sunk. And I start putting shells downrange. And got him, thankfully.
Enemy destroyer foundered.
So at this point, we've got a friendly ship in the cap circle. He's capping. However, that can be easily interrupted. You can see there's torpedoes in the water. Someone's trying to sink them. So I figure, well, I'm heading this way anyway, come up to full power, and head towards the cap circle. That Wyoming will get to live another day. Or my friendly carrier will sink him. I mean, my guns are completely out of position. I can't put shells on him, so that's fine. I'll just keep tracking in. I set the autopilot up so I don't have to worry too much about maneuvering through the narrows, and just head in. And while I'm in this view, I realize I can see the 2 carriers over there. So take one last look at the Wyoming. Nope, still not a firing solution for him. And swing the guns around because, yeah, I'm in firing range of those two carriers. Notice I'm directly on target when I fire these guns. Notice how wide the shells land to either side of the target. That's the effect of dispersion. So, as I say, as a battleship, dispersion is the mitigating factor. It's the reason that not everybody wants to drive a battleship. Because when you're firing from these ranges, your hits just aren't guaranteed, even on a stationary target. Now, at this point, I feel kind of silly watching the video here because what I missed was the destroyed message. That carrier was dead before I fired that last salvo, and went ahead and put a full broadside down on him. Yeah, no, he's deck level with the waves already, and I'm just not getting it. Which is too bad, because if I had, I probably would have gotten another broadside off, just recon by fire. The battleship in the cap circle with me is worried about that Wyoming, who is slowly coming around. So, okay, I put my scout up in the air. I want a better idea if I can find that enemy carrier, or last remaining carrier, but all I can see is the Wyoming, so I'll put some shells onto him. So, yeah, 3 hits, 2,000 points of damage. That's just bounces. That's mostly bounces. So he turns right into me, and at this point this is what is called crossing the T. I have all of my guns favoring the axis on which most dispersion occurs, front to back, not left to right. Which means that almost every one of these shells hits him. It only counted the first 2 hits, but that's because he ran out of hit points at that point. But yeah, if you watch the video, that was absolutely every shell. The friendly battleship in with me kind of questions whether or not the Wyoming driver was thinking at all when he turned directly in like that, but you've got 2 schools of thought. There was no way he was going to win this game. It just wasn't going to happen. We've still got 3 battleships. There's a carrier. We've got a friendly carrier up. He was just going to die. So 2 ways of doing it. Turn around and run and hide in the back left corner of the map and hope no one ever finds you and the timer ticks out, or fight it out. Well, it's a game about fighting it out, so that's what some people do. It's all good. I don't judge either way, but if you're going to turn towards me and I'm defending the cap circle, yeah, I'll sink you. This is a technique referred to as recon by fire. I know there's a carrier over there somewhere. My dispersion is such that the odds of me hitting him are pretty low, but I might get lucky. And look at that. One of those shells was probably within 150 yards of his flight deck. However, that was the end of the match. We capped it out. So this is a pretty average result for me with the Kongo. Over 100,000 credits, over 2,000 XP. Decent number of hits, Citadel crit, couple of kills. Yeah, I enjoy the ship. So, 3rd place on the team in overall XP with 2 ship kills and 3 aircraft kills. I do run a premium account. I love the game, so throw a few dollars on the table to say thank you to Wargaming. But yeah, not a bad result. So you can see 166 shells fired. You may as well say 170 shells with a 10% hit rate. That's about average for me. Over 30,000 damage in armor-piercing damage, half of which, if you recall, was done by a single Citadel slam. So it's a good indication of just how much potential damage you can do if you can score those Citadel hits. So there's the numbers with the premium account. You'll notice that of course the cash take, if you're playing a premium account, you make noticeably more money. That'd be 120,000 versus 76,000. So that's, what's that? Almost a third more. Yeah, about a third more cash. So you know, if you certainly want to get into those higher tier vessels in a hurry, for example, to go to the tier 6 Fuso is over 3.6 million credits. There's certainly an argument to be made for playing a premium account. And well, if you love the game, why not support it? Anyway, folks, that's the end of the video. Thanks very much for watching. I hope someone out there either enjoys it, finds it entertaining, or finds some use. Not saying I know much about battleship playing. I'm just saying this is how I play. And if it works for somebody else too, let me know. Thanks very much. All the best. Bye-bye.